As the conversation unfolds, one of the girls hesitantly suggests that the reason behind the strange behavior might be that he's just a shady guy. However, this explanation feels flimsy, leaving the group with more questions than answers. The atmosphere thickens with uncertainty as they ponder the oddity of the situation. Then, another girl chimes in, recalling that she was in the same class as him during their freshman year. From the very first day, he was subjected to relentless teasing for reasons no one could quite grasp. Surprisingly, a few kids even stood up for him at first. But everything changed when they discovered that he was a star student, acing every exam with perfect scores. The moment they learned this, their attitude shifted, and they began to treat him with cold indifference. Rumors soon spread like wildfire, claiming he boasted about his grades on a secret account, where he supposedly mocked those who had once helped him. Whispers circulated that he was even responsible for getting a fellow student expelled. Faced with these allegations, the classmates quickly turned against him, using the rumors as justification for their bullying of the top student. Amidst this turmoil, Satsuki's friends turned to her, questioning her unusual interest in Wichi, who typically exudes an air of indifference in class. Satsuki explains that her friendship with Yotsuha has sparked her curiosity about Wichi's situation. Meanwhile, we shift to Wichi's perspective as the final classes of the day draw to a close. Yotsuha, determined to put her plan into action, snaps a photo and calls Wichi over to join her. But she doesn't stop there. She also invites Yamato, revealing that the photo is from their childhood. As they reminisce, Satsuki and her group suddenly arrive. Satsuki greets Yotsuha with enthusiasm, and soon the other girls express their desire to befriend her as well. To their delight, Yotsuha agrees. Yamato, however, can't help but wear a skeptical expression at the thought of Yotsuha making new friends. Yet, he feels a wave of relief wash over him, knowing that Yotsuha's social life is on the mend sooner than he expected. Just when things seem to be settling, Satsuki unexpectedly apologizes to Wichi. She expresses a desire to discuss the harassment he's been enduring, prompting her to ask if he finds it strange that he was bullied from day one. She inquires whether he knows who might be behind it, someone from middle school or a long-time acquaintance who could use his past against him. Wichi struggles to pinpoint anyone specific, but as Satsuki glances at the photo in Yotsuha's hands, a realization dawns on her. She suspects it could be Yamato. However, one of the girls accompanying Yamato dismisses the idea, insisting that he's a good person, suggesting that the culprit must be someone else entirely. Out of nowhere, a guy who has been quietly listening to the conversation steps in. He has something to say, despite knowing that Yamato has a terrible reputation. He reveals that not long ago, while in the locker room, he overheard Yamato bullying Wichi, blaming him for the isolation of the transfer student. The guy admits that he usually stays out of such matters, but the malice in Yamato's words was unmistakable. It becomes clear that while Yamato has always played the role of the good boy, he is, in fact, the one responsible for Wichi's suffering. Yamato quickly defends himself, insisting that he is a hero, claiming that everything he has done is to protect Yotsuha from Wichi. His true intentions are laid bare before everyone, but before they can confront him, Yotsuha unexpectedly intervenes. She refuses to believe that Yamato could be capable of such cruelty, suggesting that if he is involved, he is likely just following someone else's orders. With those words hanging in the air, Yamato finds himself cornered, clutching his phone as he denies any involvement from another party. As the next class begins, we see Yamato hurriedly sending a message to someone, confessing that he has been caught. The response is clear. He is instructed not to take any action for now. This realization hits him hard. Yotsuha is aware that there is another person involved in this mess. Days pass, and the news of Yamato being the bully begins to circulate throughout the school. Thanks to Satsuki's efforts, many students have come to terms with the fact that they were harassing an innocent person. As a result, some are already distancing themselves from Yamato. Yotsuha's plan is unfolding perfectly, and she hopes everything will come to a head tomorrow. Although it seems like the situation is under control, she can't shake the feeling that if given the chance, she would want to push Yamato even further. Yet, amidst all this, Wichi grapples with the betrayal he experienced from someone he once considered a friend. He finds himself sinking into melancholy. reflecting on how this has happened before. He wonders if he can truly trust Yotsuha, but she tries to lift his spirits, assuring him that everything will be all right from now on. Taking advantage of their moment alone, he confesses that he has always admired her unique way of expressing herself. This time, however, he senses her embarrassment as she shyly asks him to stop. Meanwhile, we shift back to Yamato, who is frustrated by his failure to eliminate Uichi once and for all. He tells himself that if things continue this way, he won't be able to help Yotsuha correct her mistakes because of Uichi. He fears that if he doesn't act quickly, she will be dragged into a spiral of misfortune. Checking his phone, he sees a conversation with an unnamed person who has been giving him instructions, identified only by a four-leaf clover emoji. Doubt creeps in as he realizes he doesn't fully trust this person, prompting him to devise a plan to turn the situation to his advantage. However, his thoughts keep drifting back to Yotsuha, who seems to genuinely care for him and would likely be grateful for his help. With no clear solution in mind, he decides to set the problem aside for now and heads to the bathroom. As he walks through the corridors, he thinks he hears Yotsuha's voice and rushes to find her. To his shock, he stumbles upon a scene he never expected: Yotsuha and Uichi sharing a kiss. Returning to Yotsuha and Uichi, she is blushing and insists that her display of affection should make her feelings for him clear. She reassures him that she is by his side because she truly wants to be with him. In that moment, something inside Yamato shatters. The next day, we see Uichi leaving his house, eager to meet Yotsuha again. She is still too embarrassed to look him in the eye, reflecting on how she can't seem to get used to this newfound happiness. Uichi, on the other hand, is still processing the depth of Yotsuha's feelings for him. Unlike anyone else he has known, she is different. Her love and support have helped him bear the burdens he thought would break him. A new feeling blossoms within him, and he realizes that he can confidently express his feelings for her as well. With that, a new chapter begins in their relationship. As Uichi arrives at school, he is taken aback to find his locker completely clean. A stark contrast to the previous day when it was filled with garbage. Just then, Satsuki appears to explain what has transpired. She has spoken to their classmates, urging them to stop the harassment towards Uichi. But that's not all. She has also organized an assembly in the hall to address the issue of bullying. Yotsuha agrees that it's a great idea but asks a favor. She believes it would be best if Uichi didn't participate. With a somber tone, she expresses concern that the two might say hurtful things to each other. Accepting her condition, Uichi decides to wait in the science room, which Yotsuha thinks is a good idea. As they part ways, Uichi reflects on how much brighter his world has become since Yotsuha arrived. Just a few days ago, he was plagued by anxiety that made him feel sick every morning. Now, he feels a sense of calm, and even his mother seems kinder to him, though he can't shake the mixed feelings that come from remembering the bad times. He contemplates that once he enters university, it might be best to leave home and live independently. Yet, he wonders if he could live with Yotsuha instead. With a promising future ahead, Uichi feels that Yotsuha has brought him the happiness he desperately needed to move forward. He likens her to a four-leaf clover, a symbol of good fortune. Meanwhile, Yotsuha is anxiously waiting for Yamato, telling herself that he will arrive any moment now. But as time passes, she realizes he is not coming, and a wave of fear washes over her. Satsuki notices her distress, but Yotsuha reassures her that everything is fine. She tries to calm herself as she walks through the hallways, repeating that she might have just misjudged the time. Approaching the science room, panic sets in, and she rushes to open the door. What she finds is a scene that shatters her world. Uichi lies motionless on the floor, and Yamato stands over him, having just finished him off. Time seems to freeze for Yotsuha as she processes the heartbreaking sight. The shock of witnessing Uichi's lifeless body leaves her reeling, and Yamato, noticing her presence, greets her with a twisted sense of pride. He boasts that he has eliminated the source of her unhappiness, revealing his true intentions. In a moment of desperation, Yotsuha tries to regain her composure, realizing she must rewrite the events unfolding before her. With panic coursing through her, she reaches for the knob of her watch, activating its power to distort time and rewind to the moment before the tragedy occurred. Suddenly, she finds herself back in her room at 8:15 p.m. the night before. relieved to see that Uichi is safe. As she reflects on her repeated attempts to prevent this incident, it becomes clear that she has been reliving this moment for 6 months. On December 6th, Uichi was destined to eliminate the source of his pain, unable to bear the mistreatment any longer. Determined to change his fate and bring him happiness, Yotsuha has traveled from the future to break this cycle of misfortune. However, she faces a significant challenge: Yamato, who has thwarted every plan she has devised. To ensure Uichi's happiness, she knows she must eliminate Yamato. But it's easier said than done. Each time she tries, Yamato reacts violently, leading to disastrous outcomes. Yet, Yotsuha is resolute. No matter how many times it takes, she will find a way to confront him without causing further harm. She realizes that to truly eliminate the problem, she must uncover the person behind Yamato's actions. Reflecting on her past attempts, she recalls how her behavior has changed, particularly her possessiveness towards Uichi. She wonders if Yamato's jealousy was sparked by witnessing the kiss between her and Uichi. Initially, she dismisses the thought, knowing that Yamato should have been far away at that time. However, she begins to connect the dots, recalling their first meeting when she grabbed his sleeve to pull him away from Uichi. Each interaction they had could have influenced Yamato's unstable emotions, leading to the tragic outcome. Understanding how easily he could develop a morbid jealousy, Yotsuha resolves to be more cautious in her next attempt to protect Uichi and break the cycle of pain. Determined to change the course of events, Yotsuha decides to go back in time once more, aiming to redo everything with meticulous care to avoid any mistakes. She touches the knob of her watch and rewinds to May 19th, the night when Uichi would have a nightmare, prompting her to call him for reassurance. This time, she plans to follow her previous actions closely, ensuring that she doesn't stray from the path that led to disaster. As the day unfolds, Yotsuha encounters Yamato for the first time. She resolves to interact with him as little as possible to prevent falling back into the same timeline. When they meet, she adopts a cold demeanor, determined to keep things from getting complicated. With a newfound resolve, she tells herself that she will find a way to gather information about Yamato's accomplice and put an end to the torment once and for all. Each significant event unfolds as it did before, but this time Yotsuha is careful not to get too involved. Drawing from her previous loops, she decides to approach the situation differently, attempting to extract information from Yamato's accomplice. However, her efforts result in a resounding failure, leading her to realize that avoiding interaction with Yamato is crucial. As physical education class approaches, Yotsuha and Uichi separate, giving Yamato the opportunity to taunt Uichi. Yotsuha knows that allowing this confrontation to happen is part of her plan. She has discovered that when Yamato bothers Uichi, a boy named Nanami, who despises Yamato, will overhear the exchange. Nao's temperamental nature makes him a key player in exposing Yamato's true character, and Yotsuha recognizes his potential usefulness. With this strategy in mind, Yotsuha allows the events to unfold. When she and Uichi meet for lunch, she tries to reassure him that she can make friends whenever she wants. But what truly matters to her is spending time with him. As the day progresses, events unfold similarly to the previous loop, culminating in Yamato revealing his true intentions in front of everyone. Yotsuha has a plan in mind. She hopes to provoke Yamato into making a mistake. To ensure this happens, she heads to the room where Yamato will be after class, drawing a happy face on the floor. When Yamato enters and sees the drawing, it reminds him of the emojis he used on his fake account. He briefly considers creating one of his own, but quickly dismisses the idea, realizing he doesn't have enough time for such an elaborate scheme. This moment of distraction works in Yotsuha's favor, as Yamato becomes too exhausted from his plotting. Despite his fatigue, Yotsuha feels a surge of courage. She approaches Uichi and, after carefully considering her actions, leans in to give him a kiss. In that moment, she resolves to do everything in her power to ensure their happiness together. Fast forward to the fateful day at school, where Satsuki announces her plan to hold a class meeting to discuss Uichi's situation. Yotsuha asks Uichi to wait in the science room, setting the stage for a repeat of previous events. However, this time, Yamato's presence in the hall signals a significant change in the timeline, offering hope that they might finally break free from the loop. As the meeting begins, Satsuki addresses the class, explaining the need to confront the ongoing harassment Uichi has faced. Yotsuha supports her, stating that both she and Satsuki have watched Uichi endure derogatory comments and damage to his belongings, and they want to put an end to this behavior. Some classmates express their desire to stop the bullying, but their words often remain empty, lacking action. Seizing the moment, Yotsuha proposes that they collaborate to identify those responsible for the harassment. Under the pressure of their peers' gazes, the culprits begin to point fingers at one another. One student nervously denies throwing Uichi's books into the toilet, but Yotsuha confronts him with a steely gaze, demanding the truth. The boy, feeling cornered, shifts the blame to another classmate, who in turn claims someone else told him to do it. As the accusations fly, the group eventually converges on the true instigator, Yamato. The rumors surrounding him confirm his role as the bully, and the atmosphere in the room shifts. A classmate brings up the fake profile that had been impersonating Uichi, revealing that Yamato had concocted a plan to use his own account to further torment Uichi. However, he hadn't anticipated that others would recognize the similarities between the profiles. With Yamato trapped in a web of accusations, Yotsuha steps forward, asking him directly if he is responsible for the harassment or if someone else is pulling the strings. This moment is pivotal. She senses that Yamato is not the mastermind behind the events that have unfolded. She recalls the subtle changes that occurred each time she traveled back in time, realizing that Yamato's actions were influenced by someone else. Yotsuha confidently asserts that the true culprit is the person behind the profile marked with a four-leaf clover, who has been threatening Yamato to ensure his compliance. Faced with the truth, Yamato reluctantly admits that he orchestrated the events to harm Uichi, but Yotsuha had anticipated this confession. To extract the information she needs, Yotsuha adopts a friendly demeanor and asks for Yamato's phone number, assuring him that she wants to verify the details before placing blame. Initially hesitant, Yamato eventually gives in to her charm, unaware of the deeper implications of his actions. Yotsuha quickly takes Yamato's phone and disables the screen lock, a move that raises questions. She needs to examine the contents more closely. But first, she must deal with Yamato once and for all. She knows that if she allows him to continue unchecked, he will eventually explode with his aggression. Although she has considered hurting him, she realizes that such actions would only postpone the inevitable. Yotsuha reflects on her promise not to harm him, but after countless repetitions of this moment, she believes she has found the perfect way to confront him. She looks at Yamato and asks him directly why he would do something so cruel. Before we hear his answer, the narrative shifts to Yamato's tragic past. As a child, he often wondered why he was different from his peers, who had both parents and lived in spacious homes filled with possessions. He and his mother lived in a small apartment, and he felt the sting of inadequacy when he compared himself to others. When he asked his mother why they didn't have what others did, she simply replied, "That's just how it is." This feeling of isolation followed him to school, where he first noticed Yotsuha. While he didn't fall in love with her at first sight, he overheard something that opened his eyes to her struggles. Returning to the present, Yamato brings up Yotsuha's background in front of the class, revealing that she was abandoned in an orphanage. He emphasizes that she has no family and that all her belongings are borrowed, implying that she, like him, has nothing. This revelation shifts Yotsuha's perspective. She realizes that her own hardships allow her to understand the pain Yamato feels. In his twisted logic, he believes that both of them must suffer now to eventually find happiness together. In his mind, all the injustices he faced were merely tests leading to a future where he and Yotsuha could be united. With this rationale, he feels justified in embracing Yotsuha, but his actions only create an uncomfortable atmosphere. Now, who has been instrumental in spreading the rumors about Yamato, can no longer tolerate the nonsense. He confronts Yamato, accusing him of using Yotsuha to escape his own miserable reality. Now points out the absurdity of involving the entire class in making Uichi's life a nightmare. Yamato, however, remains unfazed by the accusations. The tension escalates when another student speaks up, noting that it's clear Yotsuha is in love with Uichi. This comment sends Yamato into a rage, as he dismisses Uichi as just another mistake. He fails to understand Yotsuha's feelings, and when others urge him to let her go, it exposes his vulnerability. The barrage of comments forces Yamato to confront the reality of his actions, with one boy sharing that he, too, grew up with a single parent and lived in a small apartment. He questions whether he should also be denied happiness because of his background. Despite Yamato's firm convictions, doubt begins to creep in. This could be the moment for him to redeem himself. But Yotsuha has her own plan. She calmly states that unfortunately, he is not her destined partner, which ignites Yamato's anger. Yotsuha continues, explaining that while they share many commonalities, they have also missed opportunities for friendship. She suggests that if they had spent more time together, they could have formed a meaningful bond. In this vulnerable moment, Yamato begins to realize the weight of his actions. However, Yotsuha quickly clarifies that it's too late for that. She points out that he has spent his life running from reality, inventing justifications for his vile acts. The pain he has caused her and those she cares about is unforgivable. With conviction, she declares that she cannot be friends with someone so despicable, expressing her deep-seated hatred for him. Faced with this harsh reality check, Yamato is left to grapple with the consequences of his actions and the truth of Yotsuha's words. Yamato, visibly shaken, begins to lash out at Yotsuha with the little strength he has left. Each attempt to strike her fails miserably, as he is overwhelmed by the weight of her words and the hatred he feels for himself. In an instant, his anger dissipates, leaving him to confront the reality of how pathetic he has been throughout his life. With this realization, Yotsuha knows she has finally defeated Yamato. Rumors circulate that he plans to leave school, as this confrontation has been too much for him, traumatizing him to the point of breaking. With that problem resolved, Yotsuha feels more radiant than ever. She rushes to find Uichi, eager to share the happiness she feels now that everything has gone according to plan. What brings her even more satisfaction is that she has also gathered clues about Yamato's accomplice. Back in the classroom, the atmosphere has shifted. Yamato is gone, and Uichi is approached by the very classmates who once tormented him. They ask for his forgiveness, and despite his lingering doubts, he decides to forgive them, hoping to move on without further conflict. However, Yotsuha hasn't forgotten the pain they caused Uichi, and she suppresses her thirst for revenge, reminding herself that she can use these classmates as pawns if necessary. As recess begins, Yotsuha tells Uichi that she has some important matters to resolve. They head to the roof, where she plans to investigate Yamato's phone. With the device in her possession, she reviews the various conversations and contacts, eventually landing on one that seems suspicious. The contact is marked with a single clover, raising questions in Yotsuha's mind about whether this is a random name or if the person is somehow connected to her. As she delves deeper into the messages, Yotsuha discovers that Yamato had little involvement in the plans. He was merely following the instructions of someone who seemed to know how each situation would unfold. This person is not just anyone. They have gone to great lengths to achieve their goals, using Yamato as a pawn in their scheme to eliminate Uichi. Yotsuha realizes that she must find this person quickly, as the situation could spiral out of control if she falls into a loop she cannot escape. With the phone in hand, she decides to reach out to someone special for help. She recalls her childhood friend, Fuhan, who always spent time with her, and Uichi. Once classes are over, Yotsuha contacts Fuhan and arranges to meet at the park. When they reunite, it's a warm and nostalgic moment. However, Yotsuha quickly shifts the conversation to the pressing issue at hand. She needs Fuhan's help to ensure Uichi's happiness. Fuhan, understanding the gravity of the situation, agrees to assist her, knowing how much Yotsuha cares for her best friend. As they reminisce about their childhood, Yotsuha reflects on how intelligent and tech-savvy Fuhan has always been. Their friendship blossomed as Fuhan encouraged Yotsuha to express her feelings, helping her grow closer to Uichi. Returning to the present, Yotsuha explains everything that has happened, omitting the details about her time travel. Fuhan struggles to believe the extent of Uichi's suffering, having lost touch with her old friends after being sent to a private school. Now that she knows about Uichi's harassment and the dysfunction in his family, she feels a strong desire to help him, recognizing that he deserves a better life. Yotsuha mentions that this isn't the first time she has sought Fuhan's support. In previous loops, she had asked Fuhan to investigate the account impersonating Wichi, knowing that her skills could uncover the truth. After analyzing the data, Fuhan reveals that the account belongs to Yamato. However, Yotsuha is aware that there is another person involved in the situation. With Yamato's phone now in her possession, Yotsuha has a crucial clue to uncover the identity of the true mastermind behind the harassment. Fuhan agrees to track down the person associated with the clover profile, although she warns that it may take some time. This news worries Yotsuha, but Fuhan is impressed by Yotsuha's determination and asks how she managed to get Yamato's phone. Yotsuha brushes off the question, but Fuhan can't help but admire her dedication, commenting that it must mean she loves Wichi very much. Without hesitation, Yotsuha confirms her feelings, but she also reveals that her motivations go beyond just love. She is determined to protect Wichi and ensure his happiness. Yotsuha feels the weight of her past actions, believing that she is partly responsible for Wichi's struggles, including the dark thoughts that led him to consider taking his own life. This heavy realization leaves her feeling burdened, and when Fuhan notices her distress, she is puzzled. Yotsuha quickly reassures her friend, attributing her strange comments to a moment of vulnerability. Sensing the tension, Fuhan decides to leave, but not before raising her voice to remind Yotsuha that she doesn't have to carry this burden alone. Fuhan expresses her desire to help Yotsuha find happiness, offering her support and a listening ear whenever she needs to vent. Yotsuha accepts Fuhan's proposal with a smile, but as she turns away, she reminds herself that she cannot pass her burdens onto others. She has made a promise to ensure Wichi's happiness, and she intends to keep it. Days pass, and one rainy afternoon, Wichi and Yotsuha find shelter in a park as the downpour continues. While they wait for the rain to subside, Wichi notices that Yotsuha is soaked and cold. He instinctively moves to hug her, but his sudden action startles her, causing him to step back. Yotsuha quickly reassures him that she won't be angry, and once the misunderstanding is cleared up, they share a sweet moment. Wichi embraces her and confesses his love, sending Yotsuha into a blissful state. She is not used to receiving such affection, and the warmth of the moment fills her with both happiness and a hint of embarrassment. As they bask in their newfound closeness, Wichi notices the watch Yotsuha is wearing, which has a clover design. He asks if it's the same clover she gave him when they were children. Yotsuha confirms this, explaining that she added it to the watch herself. However, Wichi also notices that the watch seems broken, with the hands moving erratically. Yotsuha explains that the watch is old and sometimes stops working, but she doesn't dwell on it. In her mind, she knows she doesn't need to rely on the watch to predict the future. After experiencing multiple loops, she has gained insight into the important events that lie ahead. Determined to create a better future for Wichi, Yotsuha asks if he can come over to her house the next day to study together. This marks the beginning of her plan to address Wichi's family situation. Meanwhile, at Wichi's home, his mother is still struggling with her self-destructive behavior, believing that her issues might be affecting her son. She contemplates whether it would be better to stop discussing her problems. Just then, she hears a noise and sees her daughter, Utako, coming down the stairs. Utako had only come to retrieve a package that Yotsuha had delivered earlier that morning, and the atmosphere becomes tense. Wichi's mother scolds Utako for not helping around the house, expressing frustration that both she and Wichi are going through difficult times. Despite being 20 years old, Utako is neither studying nor working, which leads her mother to question her usefulness. However, Utako silently ignores her mother and retreats to her room, where she begins typing on her computer. It becomes clear that she is communicating with the person behind the clover profile. Utako confides in this mysterious figure, expressing her feelings about her toxic family life. The clover person comforts her, suggesting they make a call to discuss things further. The narrative shifts back to a time when the Wichi family was still functional. Wichi and Utako are seen enjoying a video game together. At that moment, Wichi decides he wants to become a veterinarian, leaving behind their gaming sessions to focus on his studies. Although Utako is initially upset by his decision, she ultimately supports him, even if she herself finds studying tedious and prefers to play video games. On the same day, after deciding to study, receives a message from the clover person, who tells him not to worry about what others think. The clover person reassures Utako that studying is not for everyone and encourages her to ignore their parents' scolding. This advice resonates with Utako, who has been searching for someone who understands her struggles. As she continues to receive messages from the clover person, Utako finds solace in their words, feeling understood and supported. However, this fleeting happiness is often interrupted by her mother's demands, forcing her back into the cycle of studying and self-doubt. Utako begins to internalize the belief that her parents are to blame for her perceived lack of talent, leading her to feel trapped in a toxic environment. As Utako enters high school, she faces the reality of mandatory education despite her reluctance to study. The pressure mounts and she feels increasingly isolated, seeking refuge in the messages from the clover person, who continues to provide her with the validation she craves. Utako continues to avoid responsibility, believing that her future is bleak. The transition from studying to working seems daunting, and her pessimistic mindset convinces her that she cannot try hard enough. One day, she receives a message from Treble-san, who teaches her how to live a fulfilling life with minimal effort. Encouraged by this, she finally reveals to her parents that she has been bullied at school, stating that the harassment has left her too afraid to leave the house. She announces that she no longer wants to go outside and just wants to be alone. Once in her room, Treble-san congratulates her for taking a stand, and Utako feels a surge of joy, believing her dream has come true. However, as days pass, her mother grows increasingly worried about her daughter's well-being. She visits the school to inquire about Utako's situation, only to be told by the teachers that there have been no signs of bullying. Instead, they suggest that Utako has a habit of lying, which infuriates her mother. This revelation hits her hard, as it reflects her perceived failure as a parent. The pressure mounts, and her mother suggests that Utako see a psychologist to avoid becoming a recluse. Yet, Utako is too focused on the happiness she has found in her new mindset, convinced that her toxic parents are the root of her problems. She believes that if she hadn't awakened to her reality, she would still be living an unhappy life. Now, she attributes her newfound perspective to Treble-san. Back in the present, Utako remains unchanged, insisting that her mother should apologize for not giving her any talent, as she feels incapable of working or contributing to the household. As she continues to indulge in her fantasy life, she hopes it will last forever. However, Yotsuha has a plan. She cuts Utako's internet connection, a strategic move to help her sister find happiness. Meanwhile, before Yotsuha arrives, Uichi is cleaning his room and reflects on the state of his home. He realizes how much he has neglected it due to his own struggles. With Yotsuha's support, he has begun to reclaim parts of himself that he thought were lost. While cleaning, he finds a family photo that brings back pleasant memories of happier times. But he also feels trapped in his current situation. He contemplates leaving home after entering university, knowing that his family is on a destructive path. Despite the changes in his mother and sister, he hesitates to abandon them, remembering their smiles and the love they once shared. Just as he is lost in thought, Yotsuha bursts into the house, bringing a sense of security back into his life. They head upstairs, but on their way, they encounter Utako, who is checking the internet connection. Yotsuha seizes the opportunity to tell Uichi that she will say hello to their mother and quickly gives him a gift, hoping he will enjoy it. Uichi's mother takes the gift without much interest, which Yotsuha anticipated. Undeterred, she heads upstairs, but instead of going to Uichi's room, she enters Utako's. Upon entering Utako's messy room, Yotsuha accidentally spills a drink on the computer and console, fulfilling her mission to disrupt Utako's comfort. Meanwhile, Utako realizes that the internet connection is down and contemplates calling the service provider. However, her anxiety prevents her from reaching out to anyone, including her parents, as the thought of interacting with them stresses her out. Instead, she decides to wait for someone to notice the issue. Although she has video games to play offline, when she enters her room and sees the mess, her heart sinks. The sight of her damaged devices brings her despair, and Yotsuha, hearing her cry, knows that her plan is working. Utako regrets not being more careful with her drink, but she is unaware of Yotsuha's involvement. In a panic, she rushes to check her devices, only to find them broken. Desperate for a solution, Utako turns to online forums for advice. But the suggestions she receives are impractical. She lacks the funds to repair her equipment and is unwilling to consider working to earn money. Feeling trapped, she decides to go to sleep, hoping to escape her reality. However, as she drifts off, she hears Wichi and Yotsuha studying together. In that moment, Yotsuha asks Wichi to stroke her hair for the effort she has put into studying. As Yotsuha cuddles with Wichi, the affectionate moment is interrupted by Utako, who misinterprets the sounds coming from their room. She finds herself questioning how her once perfect life has devolved into chaos. Just then, she receives a message from Treble-san, who apologizes for the delay in responding, explaining that he was busy talking to an acquaintance. Meanwhile, Yotsuha believes she has successfully executed her plan regarding Utako. However, she is still unaware that the person behind the clover profile is manipulating events from the shadows. Although she thinks Utako is not directly involved in the family's troubles, she knows that this figure has been orchestrating everything for a long time. Determined to uncover the truth, Yotsuha leaves the investigation to Fuhan, who will work to identify the person behind the clover profile. In the meantime, Yotsuha tries to extract information from Wichi, pretending it's a game. She wonders if the culprit is someone he has known since high school, but doubts it, as that person seems to know too much about her and even about Yamato. The most likely suspect, she concludes, is someone from their elementary school days. As Yotsuha asks Wichi if there was anyone who harbored deep resentment towards him, he recalls a painful experience from middle school. After helping a classmate, he became the target of bullying himself. This memory revives old traumas, and Yotsuha, noticing Wichi's discomfort, decides to set that line of questioning aside for now. She understands that he is hiding something, but she chooses to focus on his family, knowing they could be the tipping point that leads Wichi to despair. Just then, they are interrupted by an unexpected visitor, Wichi's father. Yotsuha recognizes him as the most problematic member of the family, and the tension in the room escalates. Flashbacks reveal Wichi's father after his marriage. When he felt the pressure to be a good father, he imposed high expectations on himself, determined to fulfill his family's expectations. Returning to the present, Wichi's father enters the room, and Yotsuha greets him warmly, noting that it has been a long time since they last met. He pretends not to recognize her and asks if they are studying. Before they can respond, he mentions that Wichi plans to take the college entrance exam, expressing pride in his son's choice of a medical career. Wichi is taken aback, trying to correct his father by stating that he actually wants to study veterinary medicine. However, his father dismisses him, offering cookies he bought instead. When Wichi sees that the cookies contain nuts, he realizes that his father still doesn't care about his allergies or his well-being. Conflicted, he feels a mix of confusion and discouragement, but Yotsuha quickly calms him by pulling out some cookies she made herself, lightening the mood. Meanwhile, Wichi's father reflects on his role in the family. Since Utako's struggles began, he has been sending her money for living expenses, believing it would help her. He recalls how his wife has been worried about Utako's education and how she personally visited the school to investigate the situation. Unfortunately, she found no evidence of bullying, which led to sleepless nights and whispers from colleagues about her taking too many breaks at work. In a moment of frustration, Wichi's mother pleads with her husband to help their daughter, but he dismisses her concerns, believing she just needs to try harder. His lack of empathy only exacerbates the situation, leading to a confrontation where Wichi's mother, overwhelmed, cuts herself off in front of him. When Wichi arrives home, he sees his mother in distress and rushes to stop her from hurting herself. Wichi's father, instead of showing concern, calmly calls for an ambulance, dismissing his son's fears as paranoia. At the hospital, Wichi's mother apologizes profusely, and in that moment, Wichi realizes the extent of his family's struggles. Despite his own bullying at school, he chooses to hide his pain to avoid adding to their problems. As time passes, Wichi's father continues to believe he is a good father, despite the chaos surrounding them. Returning to the present, Yotsuha prepares to execute the next phase of her plan. She reflects on the dynamics of Wichi's family. His sister is a shut-in, his father is negligent, and his mother is mentally unstable. This toxic environment has united them in suffering. ultimately leading Wichi down a dark path that could result in his taking his own life. Yotsuha vows that she will never forgive them for the pain they have caused him. In the kitchen, Yotsuha opens the shelves and finds Wichi's mother's medications. Taking them is the first step in her quest for revenge. She believes that they are the source of Wichi's suffering, and she is determined to make them feel the same pain they have inflicted on him. Yotsuha is convinced that Wichi will be happier without his family in his life. As time passes, we see the consequences of Yotsuha's actions unfold. Wichi's mother has been admitted to a psychiatric hospital, Utako has ended up in prison, and Wichi's father has been forced to move away for work. Yotsuha approaches Wichi, suggesting that even though he no longer has his family, he can stay with her from now on. However, Wichi's demeanor reveals that he is still deeply affected by the turmoil in his life. Yotsuha struggles to understand why Wichi still cares about his family, despite the suffering they have caused him. She questions what makes them special, especially since they have become despicable people. This discouraging future prompts her to consider returning to change things. If her goal is to make Wichi happy, she must find a way to set things right. Determined, Yotsuha returns to the moment when she was about to take the medications. She decides that revenge is unnecessary and leaves the medications in the hallway. A few minutes later, Wichi's mother discovers them and, suspecting Utako's involvement, heads upstairs to confront her. On her way, she encounters Yotsuha, who is speaking with her husband. Wichi's mother overhears their conversation, where Yotsuha expresses concern for her well-being. She mentions that Wichi's mother seems to be suffering, and reflects on how she used to be affectionate and attentive to her children. Yotsuha suggests that if Wichi's mother truly cares about her children, she should consider how her actions affect them. Despite Yotsuha's heartfelt words, Wichi's father remains indifferent, treating her concerns as trivial. However, Wichi's mother begins to reflect on her behavior, realizing that her self-harm not only affects her but also impacts Wichi. She acknowledges that if she truly valued her children, she would feel guilt for her actions. In a moment of clarity, Yotsuha's words resonate with Wichi's mother, prompting her to reconsider her choices. She heads to her room and finds the gift Yotsuha brought, a photo of Wichi and Utako, both smiling and happy. This moment serves as a catalyst for change in Wichi's mother. As hours pass, Yotsuha and Wichi finish studying. Yotsuha realizes that to make Wichi happy, she must also help his family find happiness again. She understands that her anger, resentment, and desire for revenge are no longer important. She is willing to sacrifice those feelings to achieve her goal. Just as she resolves to bring happiness to Wichi's family, the person behind the Clover profile makes their next move by sending a message to Utako. Utako leaves her room in search of something to eat and stumbles upon her mother's medications in the kitchen. Panic sets in as she quickly puts them away. Just then, her mother appears and, seeing what Utako is doing, pieces together that her daughter must have thrown the medications down the hallway. Initially fueled by anger, she soon shifts her focus to Utako, urging her to stop being a recluse and to take charge of her life. Tired of the same old lectures, Utako can't stand being pushed out of her comfort zone. Frustrated, she decides to leave the house, feeling that she can no longer be happy there after losing everything. In a moment of despair, she runs down the street, contemplating throwing herself in front of a car to end her problems. However, the fear of actually going through with it stops her, and she finds herself at the park instead. Sitting alone, Utako realizes that returning home is no longer an option, but she also knows that surviving on her own will be difficult. Just then, a man approaches her, apologizing for making her wait. He introduces himself as her interviewer, having received several emails from her, which were prompted by Yotsuha. He explains that he is looking for candidates for a job, specifically for a game tester position, and finds it odd that she insisted on meeting in the park while wearing pajamas. Despite the unusual circumstances, the interviewer is desperate to fill the position, as previous hires had been fired for misconduct. Utako is taken aback, questioning whether her mother made the appointment without her consent. Raising her voice, she refuses the offer, claiming that she cannot dedicate her life to work. The interviewer, puzzled by her rejection, asks if she is really saying she isn't good at playing video games. Confused, Utako asks for clarification, and he explains that the company develops video games and is looking for testers. He mentions that her achievements make her a promising candidate for the role, praising her talent. Utako is taken aback by the unexpected compliment, realizing that someone appreciates her skills for the first time. Doubting her decision, she considers that working in a field she is passionate about might not be so bad. However, she still prefers the comfort of staying at home. The interviewer encourages her to try the job, suggesting that she won't know if she likes it until she gives it a shot. After some hesitation, Utako agrees to attend the interview. Meanwhile, Yotsuha observes the situation from a distance, realizing that she has been rewinding time repeatedly until she finally found a way to help Uichi's sister escape her confinement. Satisfied with the progress, she returns home to plan her next move. Just as she leaves, Utako receives a message from Treble-san, who claims to have found a way to make her life easier and happier. The next day, Yotsuha visits Uichi's house, greeting him with a warm hug and expressing how much she missed him. She playfully notes that it's not so bad since they see each other every day, hinting at her desire to create a timeline where everything turns out well. Shifting her focus, Yotsuha greets Uichi's mother, bringing another gift. Although Uichi's mother remains indifferent, Yotsuha sees this as a breakthrough. Taking advantage of the moment, Yotsuha mentions that she plans to take the university entrance exam next year and has been visiting Uichi to study. This revelation strikes a chord with Uichi's mother, who realizes that if Uichi goes to university, he may leave home, leaving her alone. The fear of losing her son prompts her to consider prohibiting him from continuing his studies. However, her thoughts are interrupted when Yotsuha finds some medicine on the ground. She picks it up, intending to place it on a shelf, which triggers a realization in Uichi's mother. Remembering that Uichi had once expressed a desire to become a veterinarian, a costly career, she recalls that she had been saving money to support his dream. This reflection leads her to understand that she had previously supported Uichi's aspirations, but her recent behavior has changed. Yotsuha leaves Uichi's mother deep in thought and asks Uichi where Utako is, hoping to greet her. Uichi informs her that Utako is not home and that she left early for some reason. Yotsuha feels a sense of relief, knowing that Utako is likely at her job interview. As Yotsuha begins to outline the progress of each family member, she feels optimistic that it is only a matter of time before Uichi's mother returns to her former self. As far as Utako is concerned, she realizes that if she continues to pursue the job that suits her perfectly, she may finally be able to support herself. However, Uichi's father still hasn't taken any steps to care for his family. Despite this, he believes that if Uichi's mother and sister can change, it will be more than enough to improve their situation. With this in mind, Yotsuha begins to adjust her strategy, focusing on uncovering the identity of the person behind the clover profile. She reflects on Uichi's past experiences in high school, recognizing that there may be clues hidden there, but she knows it will be challenging to ask him about those memories. While contemplating how to approach the topic, Uichi reflects on the positive changes in his life, both at home and at school. Feeling a surge of courage, he decides to ask Yotsuha a more important question, despite his fear of her potential reaction. With some nerves, he inquires if she has thought about attending college. Yotsuha, taken aback by the suddenness of the question, expresses her desire to be by his side. With that heartfelt statement, Uichi feels a newfound confidence and suggests that if they both get into university, they should live together. This proposal leaves Yotsuha speechless and blushing, but she ultimately accepts, realizing that Uichi is ambitious and wants to make her happy. Although it's a significant moment for both of them, Yotsuha hesitates for a moment, repeating to herself that they must work hard to achieve their goals together. Motivated, they dive into their studies, determined to prepare for university. Meanwhile, we shift to Tako's perspective. She didn't go to the company for the job interview, but she received a message from Treble-san, who wants to introduce her to someone waiting for her at a specific location. When she arrives, she meets a boy named Tuya, who immediately captures her attention. Recalling a previous conversation with Treble-san, Utako remembers mentioning her crush on a voice actor, and how she even dyed her hair to resemble him. To her surprise, Toya looks like her idealized boyfriend, and with that introduction, he has her completely enchanted. As they converse, Toya expresses his happiness at finally meeting her, confessing that he couldn't help but fall in love after seeing her photos. Utako feels elated, unable to believe what is happening. As he closes the distance between them and takes her hand, he compliments her nervousness, calling her cute. The rest of the day unfolds with Utako getting lost in her feelings for Toya. His attentiveness and the thoughtful gifts he brings make her feel as if they are already in a relationship. By nightfall, she is madly in love, and Toya, sensing her feelings, asks if she would go out with him. He even hints at the possibility of marriage, which excites Utako, who has longed for love and affection. However, Toya reveals that they won't be able to be together for long due to his debts. He asks if she can lend him 5 million yen to pay off what he owes. Utako returns home, troubled by the thought of where she could possibly find that much money. In a conversation with Treble-san, she recalls that she once found a savings account with a significant amount of money. Treble-san, understanding her toxic family situation, suggests that she take the money, reminding her that all she needs is the book and the stamp to access it. Utako hesitates, fearing the consequences if she gets caught. However, Treble-san encourages her, emphasizing that marrying Toya would allow her to escape her family's problems. He urges her to take this chance, reminding her that if she does nothing, she will remain trapped in her unhappy life. The next day, Uichi wakes up early to go to school, and to his surprise, his mother approaches him. She tells him that she will leave early as well, motivated by his determination to continue his studies and pursue university. Utako, still undecided, ultimately decides to follow Treble-san's advice, believing it to be the right path to her happiness. She takes the savings book and the stamp, determined to give the money to Toya. Meanwhile, Uichi is studying that night while chatting with Yotsuha about a lunch she prepared for him. Before he can respond, he overhears a heated argument downstairs. Concerned, he rushes to find that his family is blaming Utako for their current troubles. They have discovered that she took the savings book, and Uichi's mother has noticed the expensive necklace Utako is wearing, one of the gifts from Toya. When confronted about the necklace, Utako admits that she can no longer return the money because she gave it to Toya, who has since disappeared, deleting all his contacts. This revelation leads to panic, as Uichi's mother suggests calling the police, but Utako informs them that Toya has already left the country, making it nearly impossible to recover the money. Faced with this crisis, Uichi's mother begins to spiral, realizing that the money she had saved for the family's future is now gone. Uichi tries to reassure her, stating that he wasn't going to ask for money for university. Instead, he plans to earn good grades to qualify for scholarships, hoping to alleviate their financial burden. He urges his family not to worry about him. However, Uichi's father, for the first time, intervenes in family matters, raising his voice to emphasize the seriousness of the situation. He chastises Uichi for being focused on his dreams while ignoring the family's financial crisis. He insists that if Uichi has time to study, he also has time to work to recover the lost money. Utako, feeling the pressure, points out that she cannot work due to her past experiences at school, effectively placing the burden on Uichi. She claims that she is incapable of contributing to the family, and her mother, knowing that Uichi is the only one who cares for her, remains silent. Utako even threatens to take her own life if Uichi tries to leave, further complicating the family dynamics. As the family grapples with the fallout from Utako's actions, Yotsuha arrives at the house. Noticing that Uichi hasn't responded to her messages, she senses that something is wrong. Upon entering, she finds them in the midst of an argument, realizing that this conflict is ruining Uichi's chances for happiness. Determined to reverse this timeline, Yotsuha attempts to use her watch to turn back time, but it fails to work. Panic sets in as she realizes that she can no longer go back. In the midst of her distress, Yotsuha explains the limitations of her watch. While it has the power to rewind time, it also deteriorates with excessive use. Each time she rewinds, the watch becomes less reliable, and she discovers that it was originally a cheap timepiece that should have lasted only a few years. Now it has surpassed its lifespan, leading to its current malfunction. Yotsuha reflects on how this issue has affected her in previous loops, where she found herself stuck at critical moments. Fortunately, after a few tense moments, the watch begins to work again, allowing her to escape the situation without major consequences. Due to the issues with her watch, Yotsuha realizes that time is running out before it completely breaks down. Desperate to make Uichi happy, she repeatedly tries to get the clock working again, but nothing happens. Faced with the grim reality that she cannot go back in time, she feels a sense of urgency. If she doesn't act, Uichi may lose hope once again, just as he had in the past. Yotsuha reflects on how Utako's situation seems predetermined, as if fate has conspired against them. This realization leads her to suspect that Treble-san might also have the ability to travel through time. While she contemplates her next move, the family notices her presence, but they are too preoccupied with their own issues to address her. Uichi's father angrily kicks her out, insisting they are in the middle of an important meeting. As Uichi watches Yotsuha leave, he feels a pang of guilt. He recognizes that he has put her through many hardships, yet she continues to smile at him. This thought leads him to realize how gloomy he has become. He wonders if Yotsuha has noticed his struggles or if she has overlooked them, as she never tried to investigate what he was going through when he needed her support the most. Despite his uncertainty about her intentions, Uichi acknowledges that Yotsuha has saved him. Since their reunion, he has rediscovered the warmth of friendship and even allowed himself to love her. With these vivid feelings in mind, he wishes to always be by her side. However, his father's insistence that Yotsuha leave forces him to confront the reality of his situation. He grapples with the question of whether he should sacrifice his happiness for the sake of his family. Deep down, Uichi knows he doesn't want to lose Yotsuha. Remembering her encouragement, he resolves to break free from the chains that have bound him. He stops Yotsuha from leaving and declares that he must change. He confronts his family, raising his voice to assert that he will go to college and leave home. His father dismisses this as nonsense, pointing out that they have just lost a significant amount of money. Uichi counters that the money was meant for their future, and proposes that they give him a few years to fulfill his dream of becoming a veterinarian. He believes that achieving his goal will ultimately help them recover the lost funds. Even if his father disagrees, Uichi insists that they should all work together to overcome this difficult time. However, Uichi knows that the burden of work will fall on him. He confronts his father, accusing him of pretending to be a good father while failing to address the real issues at hand. He tells Utako that she should be the one working to recover the money she lost, arguing that it is absurd for him to give up his dreams because of her mistakes. He also addresses his mother, acknowledging her fear of him leaving, but questioning whether she wants him to continue suffering due to her threats. With heartfelt sincerity, Uichi expresses his love for his family and his desire to see them happy. However, he refuses to sacrifice his own happiness in the process. He shares with Yotsuha that he wants them to live together, and she reciprocates his feelings. Seeing Uichi regain the bright personality he once had, Yotsuha realizes that she has helped heal his heart. For the first time in a long while, she feels she can also allow herself to be happy. Despite Utako's objections, it becomes clear that she must take responsibility for her actions and find a job. Uichi's mother finally acknowledges her mistakes and asks for forgiveness, realizing that she has been enabling harmful behavior. With Yotsuha's encouragement, Utako is reminded of the job opportunity at the video game company. This revelation gives her a chance to turn her life around. Even Uichi's father begins to see the potential for positive change within the family. As Yotsuha reflects on the rapid progress they have made, she wonders if her connection to Treble-san has played a role in these events. She contemplates the possibility that he may be linked to the changes they are experiencing. Uichi knows that the obstacles he faces are necessary if he wants to ensure Utako's happiness. Determined, he insists on finding a way to overcome these challenges, no matter the cost. Thus, this chapter of Yotsuha's journey comes to a close, filled with hope and the promise of a brighter future. And if this video gets 10,000 likes, I will make another part. And with that said, I highly recommend you watching this summary, where you'll uncover the secret behind Elf-san's tattered appearance.